Saving for retirement can feel daunting. The same goes for managing your money once you've stopped working. That's why we've created an 8-week newsletter series breaking down what you need to consider, both pre- and post-retirement, into bite-sized chunks. If you sign up to our free retirement newsletters, for 8 weeks we'll send you an email full of expert guidance to help you take control of your retirement planning and give you the confidence to make smart decisions. We'll help you get to grips with your pension, teach you how to boost your income, and explain more about care options. It doesn't matter when you sign up either. Your 8 weeks of advice will start whenever you sign up. So what are you waiting for? Head to which.co.uk/retirement newsletters, all one word, to get up to speed on everything you need to know for retirement.
Christmas is coming, the goose is getting fat. Please save a penny on some avocado. If you like the taste of nutmeg, smoked salmon and pine needles, Christmas food is the very best food. But it's also a money spinner for the supermarkets, so today we'll be sharing the surprisingly cheap, surprisingly delicious offerings that the Which Taste Test team have discovered. I'm Harry Kind. Welcome to Get Answers.
When life gives you questions, Which? Get Answers.
Now today we're actually doing things a little bit differently because later we'll be speaking to Becky Marcus from our product testing team, who's going to be telling us all about the Which taste tests that help us determine which foods like mince pies, champagne and mulled wine get awarded our coveted Best Buy awards, and most importantly revealing some of those products so you know what to buy before Christmas. But first I thought we could do with a little bit of culinary advice, and so I'm really pleased to be welcoming back to the show Ben Ebrell from the Sorted Food YouTube channel. Welcome, Ben.
Great to be back.
We thought it would be a good chance to talk to you about Christmas cooking because obviously we do a lot of reviews of the kind of items which are, I guess, pre-made. They are the supermarket kind of like elite squad, mince pies, champagnes, that kind of thing. But really, I think a lot of the time, Christmas is about cooking things from raw ingredients. It's quite a stressful time as well. Do you kind of get people getting worked up about cooking at Christmas, or are you so much worked up about cooking the whole time that it's all water off a duck's back?
Personally, I quite enjoy Christmas because it's a chance to step back, and usually we've spent sort of on the channel on Sorted Food, we've spent a month or so doing loads of festive stuff, and you get to cherry pick all the best bits to do at home with family and friends or whatever. So I don't think it's necessarily a stressful time. For me, it's just like an elevated Sunday roast. And if you think about it like that and less like a stressful Christmas, I think everyone should be all right. But I can see why it does bother people because you're often catering for a few more people than normal in the same size kitchen.
I mean, in theory, you've got 51 weekends in which to practice your Sunday roast. You've got a lot of dress rehearsals there. It is quite a standard meal of all the kind of meals of the year. It's the most predictable one. Is it still, pretty predictable?
Yeah, although I think people always like something new each year to talk about so that when they present everything on the table, there's something that's a bit different this year or has had a twist on a favourite. But ultimately, Christmas is also nostalgia, so you don't want to stretch too far from what everyone knows and loves for fear of upsetting, especially if you've got different generations around the table. There's certain traditions that must be kept, but actually just a little twist or a little swap here and there can be quite fun.
With that in mind, I mean, are there kind of trends for this year that you've seen? I mean, it used to be that you'd have, like Nigella would say goose fat, and then suddenly goose fat goes off the shelves everywhere in the country. I guess now a lot of it's going to be people like you guys. It's going to be TikTok trends. Are there those kind of trends appearing?
Yes, although I think the trends actually are more about the challenge of Christmas, which is always managing a budget whilst also keeping people well fed. So I think actually it's a lot of the upscaling or doing fun, exciting things or adding flavours to the root vegetables, the carrots, the parsnips, the sprouts, the turnips and Swedes. Like they don't get enough look in, right? But actually do some fun stuff with them and you can put them as a centrepiece on the table, or, the dishes and the side dishes can be greater than the sum of the parts of that one showstopper hunk of meat or nut roast in the middle.
And so with that kind of budget limitation that everyone feels, is Christmas pretty doable on a budget?
I think so, because a lot of it, and you can fill out a huge amount of your plate with those seasonal veg, and you can do little twists and nods to different flavours. And then I think the key thing is most of the next few days are almost free.
Right.
Because there's so many leftovers kicking around, you then need to work out what to do to upcycle them. Make sure you've got a few eggs in, make sure you've got some pasta in, make sure you've got some risotto rice in. And basically then you can throw together 3 more meals with all the leftovers of the big Christmas dinner.
That's smart. So thinking about the extra ingredient that will make the leftovers a little bit more interesting than just the same old slices of cold meat.
It's going to be a big old shop, your Christmas shop, and you can definitely plan some of it ahead and start buying some of the things that got longer shelf life in way ahead. Some stuff you can make and freeze and get ahead so there's no stress on the day. But if you think of it as one big shot for one big day, it's very expensive. But actually, if you can then stretch it to do some leftovers and twists on leftovers for 2 or 3 more days, and I'm not talking about the classic turkey curry, that's great. One of the most searched for recipes on the internet on Boxing Day, full stop. But there's so much more you can do. And then you think about the big shop as actually being 4 days of great meals with friends and family.
And also, a top tip is that the supermarkets pretty much all do these just loss leaders where they will throw root vegetables at you for pennies in order to tempt you in to go and buy more expensive, more profitable things for them. So there are good deals to be had out there. So I suppose some quick fire tips on some of those foods. Starting off then with, I guess sprouts are the almost cliched now. Everyone knows that you just roast sprouts. I think I saw on like a Hallmark Christmas film the other day, and if it's reached the fact that it's on a Hallmark Christmas film, then roasting sprouts is just full on mainstream. What else should people bear in mind?
So the problem is they can be quite bitter, right?
Yeah.
And they can be like a really compact cabbage that people, often kids, don't like. So I always say just shred them, because then you're working with like a fine cabbage, and actually a little goes a long way. 12 sprouts shredded is actually quite a lot of sprout. I love using leftover sprouts, and I'm talking further ahead, January, when people are well done with Christmas, sprouts are still in season, they're probably just as cheap, but slice them up and stir fry them with some pancetta, a few cranberries, and some like almost chow mein spice like flavourings, and put it through noodles. A delicious dish.
Very nice. Anything to increase the surface area to get that oil to vegetable ratio
That little
better.
pocket of fart, which is basically, if you're not careful, what it is.
Okay, so slightly more just appealing on its face then, roast potatoes.
Yep. I mean, there's 101 different recipes and versions out there, and videos across social media blow up of this is the perfect roast potato. I don't think there is such a thing. I think you have to make your own perfect, and whether you prefer it more fluffy or more crispy, more golden. If you've got the space to give roast potatoes loads of space on a tray to roast, so they're not sort of compact in and steaming on themselves, or use an air fryer. We spoke a lot about air fryers last time we were here, but that kind of a way of getting a really lovely golden crunch is good. Some sort of duck fat or goose fat can definitely help, or beef dripping, delicious. But actually, keep it vegetarian and go with olive oil, and just before you roast them, toss them in some coarse polenta and things like rosemary and garlic, and the polenta roasts around the potatoes and gives you that wonderful crunch with the olive oil.
Okay, so going up, I think probably this is my slight preference order talking here. Turkey. It's quite a difficult one in that people just don't eat it normally. Like for the rest of the year, it's just not an option for most people. And it's quite a large, unmanageable item. Do you approach it with caution yourself, or are you fairly confident?
It's one of those ones in the personal, in the family home.
Yeah.
It's, there kind of has to be a turkey every year.
Right.
I think we've managed to convince the family not this year, break from tradition. And I think the reason is we have this perfect image of Christmas, and it's very Dickensian. It's very kind of back to the ways of this big centre turkey. It's very, very difficult, if not impossible, to cook a turkey whole and keep every part of the turkey perfect. So I always say, if you are going to buy a turkey, cut it up into its different parts. Cook the leg separate from the breast or the crown, or maybe just buy one or other that suits you and add on a ham or add on a small piece of roast pork or whatever, as well as the crown of turkey, so that you can actually just cook it perfectly. The other way, more fiddly, is to kind of take the turkey breasts off, butterfly them out and roll them with kind of stuffing inside and wrapped in pancetta, and almost make like a turkey Wellington. It keeps everything perfect, but that does need a bit more prep and a bit more, I guess, ambition is probably the wrong word, but a bit more effort.
You're kind of asking a lot of physics, aren't you, if you want to cook what is a massive ball with some very small pointy bits next to it and not just destroy the whole thing. And it's a difficult task. We had one year a turducken bird within a bird within a bird, and I watched my dad sew it up because in the middle, I think we had a pigeon, and on the outside, I think it was a turkey or a goose. If I remember correctly, it was 7 layers. I just don't know how there were that many birds available in the UK for purchase.
Or how any of them were perfectly cooked. But that's kind of the showstopper centrepiece. And that arcs back hundreds of years as a very showy centrepiece, going back to like Tudor feasts, when it wasn't about the quality of the food, it was about the abundance of food to prove your wealth. And I feel like Christmas sometimes is that. It's how much food can we throw at the table. Personally, I feel like rein it in a little bit and make sure each bit is perfect and that everyone is well fed.
Especially when those things can come not as like, this is this amazing thing I've put so much effort into, like a bird within a bird, but they are, look at this fancy thing that I bought from Marks & Spencer's or Waitrose or Tesco, which is the most over-the-top kind of Tudor-esque creation, but made en masse in a factory with presumably a massive markup on it, and where the taste is probably third down the priority list. It's a shame that ends up being what you see in the adverts all the time.
Yeah, and some of those kind of really slow cooks, like ox cheeks or like a shin of beef, they can be really unctuous and delicious for Christmas, but they take a bit of time to do, but they're slow cuts. They kind of work in that way. Are they as much of a wow on the dinner table? Probably not until you put it in your mouth, because they don't look as attractive, but I think they eat much better.
Right. Stuffing.
Stuffing, interesting question. If you stuff the cavity of a bird, again, you run into all sorts of troubles of cooking it all fairly and equally and well. Personally, and this is a real curveball, maybe completely leave the turkey off the table, buy some turkey mince, much more affordable if you're thinking about budget, and flavour that turkey mince with a little bit of sage, a little bit of onion, maybe some zest of orange or some dried cranberries, and make turkey meatballs that are kind of half stuffing, half meatballs, perfectly cooked, because you can, literally 20 minutes in the oven, you can get them just cooked, nice and golden, and serve turkey stuffing meatballs alongside a glazed ham and 5 vegetable side dishes, and you've just halved the bill of putting on Christmas, and everyone still gets a bit of turkey.
That's genius. You've almost inverted the bird and stuffing relationship there.
Might cause arguments at Christmas with the parents and in-laws, but worth a try.
Definitely. This is a very nerdy specific question, but do you see kind of frankly quite terrifying spikes on certain videos, like on Christmas Day or just before Christmas Day, where you're like, this tells the story of a person who is very unprepared?
Exactly that. And that's we've been doing videos on YouTube for 14 years now, which means we've had 14 Christmases.
Yeah.
And every year we try and reinvent the wheel and offer loads more inspiration and tips and tricks. And some videos we did 10 years ago are just as relevant this Christmas as they were 10 years ago. How to carve a turkey. Because that's the other thing. If you are going for the full turkey, don't carve it at the table. You're just asking for trouble and stress. Carve it in the kitchen, in your own sort of peace and quiet. Lay it out nicely on a plate, and you'll get a much better job out of it. Again, do you remove the showstopper centerpiece from the occasion? Maybe, but you end up with a better product.
Very sensible. I'd love to see the spikes for what are the symptoms of food poisoning that you get on
That's also turkey, isn't it? Turkey the biggest killer at Christmas?
Yeah, probably.
Another reason to do meatballs.
Well, on the note of food and health, I have heard that our producers asked you if you would cook something up, basically to prove that creativity at Christmas time is to be encouraged and is very doable. Am I right in saying that we've got something?
I've brought you a little something along, a classic with a Christmas twist.
Fantastic. Well, let's head up to the kitchen. We'll see what you've got in store, and we will do that right after this.
Get it right this Christmas and save 25% by giving our gardening, money, tech support or travel annual subscriptions as gifts. Buy before the 8th of January 2025 and you'll get a whole year of our expert guidance for just £36.75, down from £49, which works out at just over 10 pence a day. To buy a gift subscription for yourself or anyone else who'd find our guidance helpful, go to which.co.uk/gifts. That's which.co.uk/gifts to get 25% off one of our annual subscriptions.
Okay, so we're in the Which, I wouldn't say test kitchen, because actually it's the Which eating staff kitchen. What have you got for me here, Ben?
So this is a classic focaccia recipe, which I think is great for hosting because it's one of those ones that stays really unctuous and delicious for a couple of days. You can make it the day ahead or prep it the day ahead, prove it the day ahead, and then bake in the moment. But just before putting it in the oven, instead of studding it with maybe rosemary, garlic and salt like a classic, we've stuffed in sliced pigs in blankets, chunks of Grana Padano cheese and sage leaves, and then some roasted onions. So basically you've got like all of those flavours of Christmas. They could well be leftovers, but stuffed into a focaccia and then baked.
So you could be using, pre-cooked. That is your pigs and blankets that are left over in the bowl from the day before. That's your leftover bits of onion as well.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest, there's rarely pigs in blankets left. But if you've got people coming around for drinks and you just say, we've got a pigs in blankets focaccia, you're on for a win. If you have got those things left over, then it's that lull between Christmas and New Year where people just rock up at random times to carry on celebrating. You've always got something you can offer.
Well, fantastic. I'm going to have a little piece now, and I'm going to make sure I've got a bit of a sausagey bit in there. Oh, that is very nice. That is, in a way, quite traditionally like Italian-y flavours of that onion and the sage, but then the sausage is very much unmistakably Christmas flavoured.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things that you can make ahead and reheat whenever people rock up. I mean, we've literally just microwaved this here for you, and you get that little bit of gooey cheese. There's chunks of that Grana Padano cheese in there, but equally, whack it in the air fryer and give it a couple of minutes and it crisps up an absolute treat.
Very size adjustable, presumably. It is just like a big rectangle of bread, and you just adjust for how many people you've got still hanging around on Boxing Day.
Exactly that.
And finally, what are your Christmas plans this year?
So on the channel, we've got a video a day all the way through December. So a crazy amount of festive content, and then a live show weekend where we go all out in a castle for lots of foodie fun and games. And then we very much switch off for Christmas and New Year.
Very busy. That is Sorted Food, and that's on YouTube and all of the socials. Well, thanks so much, Ben.
Pleasure as always.
Right, I'm back in the studio and I'm joined now by Becky Marcus, who works in the product testing team here at Which, and we're going to be revealing the Which Best Buy food and drink for this Christmas. This is, I think, a bit of a kind of enviable task. I'm guessing it's not just you reviewing all of the mince pies and all of the champagne that's out there on offer at the moment.
I mean, I wish it was. I get asked this question surprisingly often, but unfortunately, tasting products isn't on the job description. So my main role is to organise and run our taste testing at Which, as well as oversee our content. We test nearly 300 food and drink products a year, so there's always a lot going on. And we take our testing seriously at Which, so that means all of our food and drink recommendations are based on robust blind taste test methodology, conducted either with a panel of experts or a large group of consumers. Unfortunately, not me.
And so you have some of these taste tests which are a representative sample of the UK population, and then there are others that are kind of, real experts with very special noses, effectively. Why is that? Why do we have baked beans from the public and champagne from the experts?
Yeah, so we test a whole variety of products. Sometimes it's everyday things like cheddar cheese, baked beans, and other times it's more specialist, premium, high-end products. And for those, we want to make sure that we have an expert panel who can kind of really give us that insight on the quality of the products. And so, yes, this year we tested mince pies, wine and chocolate with a panel of expert judges to make sure that we're really giving Which members robust recommendations.
And give us a sample of some of those experts. What are their credentials, I suppose?
Yeah, so we featured some really fantastic experts on our panel this year. So on our wine panel, we've had masters of wine, we've had pastry chefs on our mince pie panel, chocolatiers. So there's kind of a whole range of really fantastic expertise.
Including some seen on TV.
Yeah, so people might recognise a few famous faces on a couple of our panels. So we do have a previous winner of the Great British Bake Off on our mince pie panel, and a few kind of well-known baking experts.
So let's start with wine. Obviously, they're experts, so they're not getting sloshed every single time they're doing a taste. I have seen spittoons in abundance when these things are going on. But there's also quite a rigorous blinding system in place with the wines.
Yes, so all the wines are blinded and coded, so the experts don't know which ones they're trying, just to make sure our methodology is as robust as possible. And they also all try them in a different order as well, and so they can't be influenced by each other.
So they can't be influenced by each other. They're not influenced by the supermarket label. They're not influenced by the nice shiny font on the outside of it. What do they care about?
So when our experts are tasting wine, they're looking for wines that have a well-balanced flavour profile, a good enticing aroma, nice mouthfeel. And then with champagne specifically, they're looking for kind of bready, creamy notes with a bit of acidity and good bubbles.
So on champagne, which did we find were best buys?
So Tesco was our top scoring champagne. So that was Tesco Finest Premier Cru Brie Champagne. And Aldi and Waitrose also scored really well. So they were best buys as well. And it's really interesting because they all beat Moët, which is obviously the most expensive one we tested, usually costing over £40 a bottle. So yeah, really fantastic results.
That is a very widely available, but considered quite good quality champagne, isn't it? So it's impressive that the supermarkets are beating this according to top sommeliers.
Yeah, definitely. And these supermarket champagnes that won our taste test, they cost around half the price. So there's a lot of money to be saved.
That is very impressive. But if you wanted to save even more, instead of buying a £22 bottle of fizz, there are pretty good alternatives out there, right?
Yeah, so we also tested sparkling wines, all costing under £12. And we found a great value Prosecco from Lidl, which costs less than £8. So that's kind of our best value pick if you're looking for like a cheaper fizz.
Fantastic. That's the Lidl's Prosecco Superiore Valdobbiadini, which is obviously a lovely mouthful. And when you talk to these wine experts, are they saying, oh, it has to be champagne? Or are a lot of people holding a candle for these other sparkling wines?
Yeah, not necessarily. It kind of depends what your preferences are. So if you're looking for a cheaper alternative to champagne, the most similar option in terms of style is probably a Cremant, just because of the way that it's produced. But if you're looking for kind of something a bit lighter and fruitier, then Prosecco is probably your best option.
So if you're looking to pair your champagne with our very best buy mince pie, which one was a favourite from our judges?
So no surprises this year. Waitrose #1 brown butter mince pies were a top scoring best buy. They were a clear winner for our experts.
And these are £4 for 6, that's 67p per pie. So not the cheapest mince pie out there, but by the sounds of it, very nice. A little bit of a twist for having a bit of a boozy element to them compared to a lot of other supermarket mince pies. If you're looking for something a little bit cheaper, what could possibly compete?
So Aldi came in second place in our mince pie taste tests. It scored quite well, 71%, and it was one of the cheapest on test at £2.29 a pack.
And these are the kind of, I would say, the next tier up on the mince pies, all of these, aren't they? You're comparing with these weren't the budget mince pies. Is there a big difference there between the kind of bottom range and that middle range of mince pies?
Yeah, so we did do a small side test comparing some budget versus premium mince pies just to see how they compared. And it was quite interesting. Our experts found that some of the supermarket budget ones were significantly worse in terms of quality, whereas others were much more similar. So it really kind of depends on where you shop.
I think if you're going to put yourself through a mince pie, it actually has to be a good one because they can be pretty difficult when they are a claggy mess that tastes like an air freshener. So if you do want to kind of go for that 39p option, that is worth looking at. So we've been looking at treats so far, but I suppose another treat is just saving yourself a little bit of time. And we're talking to Ben, who is a culinary whiz, and so rustling up some roast potato is very easy for him. But if you want to get some frozen roasties, were there any ones that we would suggest?
Yep, so Aldi and M&S were the joint highest scorers in our taste tests. So they're both best buys. And Aldi are some of the cheapest on test as well at 25p per 100 grams.
Very impressive again from Aldi then to have one of the cheapest and one of the best. That then is comparing to M&S, still not too bad, 38p per 100 grams. These, I suppose, are traditional Christmas staples. Was there anything different that we tested this year?
Yeah, so as part of our planning, we carry out a survey to find out which products which members want us to test. And this year it showed that chocolate was a really popular option. So we branched out to dark chocolate and champagne truffles for the first time. So I'm not allowed to reveal the results of those, but we did find some really interesting results with some cheaper supermarket options beating luxury high-end brands.
Ooh, that is as good a reason as any to become a Which member and find out when those results are released. So in all of that testing, was there anything shocking or weird that we found out about all of these different Christmas foods?
Yeah, so we tested champagne truffles, and I found it really interesting that they actually sneak in different kinds of alcohol. So it's not just champagne that gives it the boozy kick. There's also extras like rum, like brandy, and our experts were able to identify these in the taste test. So yeah, I found that really interesting.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Becky. I'm sure you're going to have like an amazing Christmas with actually ridiculous amounts of food. And as a reminder, all of these reviews and all of our results are on the Which website, and some of them available only for Which members. So if you're really interested in doing some Christmas shopping, head to which.co.uk/podcast offer, and then you can get 50% off a Which subscription. And that means that you can be all prepped for the holiday season and have plenty of food and drink and, you know, a dishwasher for Uncle Dave as well. Thank you so much for joining us, Becky.
Thank you for having me.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode of Get Answers. We're going to take a short break over Christmas, but keep checking your podcast feeds for news on when we'll be back in 2025. In the meantime, don't hesitate to drop us a line. We'd love to hear what you want to hear on the podcast. Send us an email to podcast@which.co.uk or reach out on social media. We're @Which UK. This episode was presented by me, Harry Kind, produced by James Rowe and Rob Lilly-Jones, and edited by Eric Breer. And thanks again to Ben and Becky for joining us. We'll be back again soon. Bye-bye.
If you're enjoying this podcast from us here at Which, then why not become a Which member? Right now, we've got a special offer, especially for podcast listeners, meaning you can choose any of our 3 membership tiers for 50% off the usual price. Starting at just £39.50 for a full year, you can get Which magazine delivered direct to your door. For the same price, you could also choose a digital Which subscription, giving you access to all of our product reviews, the Which app, and the digital edition of Which magazine. What's more, you'll also be able to use the Ask Which service for personalised one-to-one buying advice. Or why not get a full access Which subscription for just £49.50 for a full year? Don't forget, that's 50% off the usual price. To join Which or to find out more, just head to which.co.uk/podcast offer. That's which.co.uk/podcast offer, or click the link in the description for today's podcast for 50% off a Which annual subscription.